So this is the TicWatch Pro 3 Ultra GPS. It's a bit of a long name. So first of all, I want to thank Mobvoi TicWatch for sponsoring me and sending me this watch so I could get a review done for you. And as an iPhone user, I've pretty much always been an Apple Watch user. And I was quite happily surprised to know that I can set this up with my iPhone and it works pretty much no differently to my Apple Watch. And in fact, it has much better features than the ones I've got on that one. So I've been using it for the past week and I'm looking forward to giving you my thoughts. But before we do that, let's have a closer look at what it is. So the TicWatch is a smartwatch using Google's Wear OS 2 operating system. It's not currently updated to the Wear OS 3, which we'll get onto later, but it is very functional. Now this model is just the GPS model, which means it has a GPS chip built into it, but you can also get a cellular model too in certain areas. Now, you can use it for pretty much all the things you'd expect to use a smartwatch for. Things like fitness tracking, sleep tracking, telling the time, but this watch actually does take it a few steps further with some of the TicWatch apps as well, and helps you look after your mental health. Sounds amazing. Now, this particular one has the new Snapdragon 4100 Wear processor, but it also has a processor from Mobvoi in it as well, which allows it to take advantage of some of Mobvoi's own features. And one of those features is the fact that it's got a really cool dual display. And when I talk about dual display, I don't mean like a Nintendo DS, I mean like it's got one screen but two displays within that screen. The first is the AMOLED display that you'd expect on a smartwatch and that you get on most smartwatches, but it also has a separate display, and that gives you all of the things you need to know at a glance without taking up loads of battery. And what is nice is that you can also customize the back so you get your own custom colour for the backlight. Now the most impressive thing is the battery life. It's saying that it should be up to 72 hours, and actually I got about 3 days of battery and I've just charged it again this morning, so I'm massively impressed. And that is with me turning on some of the features that require a bit more juice to get going. You could say the battery is a little bit cheeky how they've marketed it, because every feature that uses a lot of battery life on it is turned off before you start, and a lot of those features are really cool, and I ended up going in and switching those features back on. But even with me going in and doing that and switching those features on, I'm still getting close to 3 days battery life, which for a smartwatch is crazy. My Apple Watch would never get past a day, and I've tried Fossil's watch as well, and that one, again, it was about a day's worth of battery, so this is massively impressive. Now, a bonus to that, when you get to low battery, let's say about 5%, you can have it to go straight onto essential mode. And essential mode basically switches off the smartwatch capability, so you lose your tracking and stuff, gives you your digital screen and your steps and your time and all of that stuff, all of the sort of bare essentials is in the name. But then your watch will then continue to last for a long time, and if you do essential mode from 100% battery, that can last up to 45 days. So that means you can use this watch as an ordinary watch and not really have to worry about charging it for a month and a half. That's mental. Now, a lot of other watches focus on things about how fast you can charge them, and that does matter, especially if you're having to charge it every day. I left this one for an hour this morning when I was getting ready. When I came back, it was about 99%, so this one still charges fairly quickly. I don't think it's as quick as some of the other ones, but it's got a much bigger battery to fill. Now, the watch has a 1.4 inch display, and that is pretty big. I've got fairly thick wrists, you could say. They're certainly not thin wrists, and I don't think I would go for anything any bigger than this. Now, that's not a bad thing, because actually I quite like chunky watches, and I think that this is sort of the perfect size. The only thing to bear in mind is if you've got very tiny wrists, it might look a little bit too big potentially. I don't know, it's hard for me to tell because of my tree trunk wrists. Now, the watch is military tested, which means it shouldn't be getting any damage, and in the just slightly over a week that I've been using it, I've not put a mark on it at all. The glass is Corning Gorilla Glass, which means it's pretty sturdy, extremely resistant to things like scratches, and it's also easy to read in sunlight. Now, the straps that come in the box are this sort of silicone-y, rubbery feeling straps. They actually feel quite nice, they're quite comfortable. pretty strong, and when you've got the watch strap on, it's pretty comfortable. Now, if you don't like this particular strap, it's not the end of the world because you can change it. It is like a lot of other watches that has this sort of universal strap thing. So if you use any other strap that has this sort of pin mechanism, you can put that on this watch and it should fit fine. So we obviously have all of our sort of sensors here on the back there, and you got your charging point there. So if you have your charger like this, it's just a little 2-pin charger like that, and that clips on here like so, magnetically attaches, and then the watch will start charging. So the watch has GPS, it's got a barometer so it can measure your altitude. It's got a bunch of different ways of tracking you. It tracks your heart rate, your blood oxygen, but it also can track your mental well-being. Too sure on the science of that, and I'm not going to pretend to know about it, but that is a pretty cool feature. The only thing to bear in mind is if you do buy this watch, a lot of these tracking features are switched off by default. So you do need to sort of dive in the apps on the watch to go switch them on. And I haven't been able to keep track of my mental well-being because I forgot to go in and switch it on. So learn from my mistakes. Now, one of the things that was switched on is the sleep tracking. I made sure that was switched on. And because the battery lasts so long, I found that I wasn't bothering to take the watch off at night, and I was tracking my sleep, and as you can see, I don't sleep brilliantly, but when I am gone I am absolutely unconscious, so my sleep efficiency is pretty high. I'm sure my wife would probably agree with that. And TicWatch have a bunch of different health and fitness apps installed on the watch, so you can use those apps to sort of use this watch to its full potential. Now, because the watch also has Google Wear OS on it, you get the Google apps as well, but they don't all use this to its full potential. So if you want to sort of use the TicWatch apps, you do need to have a Mobvoi account and download the Mobvoi app. Now, I am an iPhone user. Really love my iPhone and I wouldn't trade it for anything. One of the nice things about this watch is that you can pair it with your iPhone, and it's no different than if you had an Android phone. The only sacrifice you would have to make is that you can't actually reply to messages on here. You do have to message people from the phone, but you can view and read your messages and everything like that. So it's not the end of the world. Now, the TicWatch is IP68 dust and water resistant, which means you can take it swimming, you can take it in the shower, and that's not going to be an issue. So hopefully you have an idea about the watch and its capabilities. Let's have a look at how it works. So I've actually had the watch for about a week, slightly over, and I have been messing around with the settings on it, so not everything is as it would be as default. I'm trying to just sort of make it my watch, make it as good as it could be for myself. So one of the cool features is this dual display. So you have this sort of standard display that is when it's resting. Then when you tap the screen, it comes up to the AMOLED display. Now, you've got the 2 buttons on either side. Press that once to open up the screen, and you can press it again to open up your apps. And you can then scroll through it. It is using Wear OS 2, not Wear OS 3. That's still not out on it yet. Who knows when that's going to be out on some of these other third-party watches, but hopefully we'll see it soon. Now, if you press this button at the bottom, that will take you through to an app of your choice. I've set it through to ring my phone, but I didn't actually want that to happen. By default, it takes you straight to fitness, and obviously I'm incredibly unfit, so that's not really going to be right for me. But I do lose my phone a lot, so by doing that and setting it up to find my phone, that's really, really useful. Now, there are a ton of different apps available from TicWatch themselves. So you've got all the sort of Tic Health, Tic Exercise apps where you can go in and sort of see all your things. Now, being an Apple Watch user, I'm used to the whole close your rings thing, and this is a very similar thing, except it's just one ring, and you can't really say fill your ring because that's a bit inappropriate. But instead you have these bars that make up one whole ring. Now, these bars are made up of 3 different categories. You have steps, active hours, and exercise. Now, another feature that I have switched on is the fact that I'm used to my Apple Watch where when I raise it, it turns on like so. So I wanted that to happen on this watch, which is obviously, as you can see, I've done that. Now, that isn't what happens by default. Normally, by default, it is a bit different. So if I go down here and go to the settings menu and go to display, you can turn always on screen like so, and that will always have the main AMOLED screen on, which we're not going to do that for now. But also in the settings, you have everything for gestures, so you can turn on tilt to wake or turn it off, and have touch to wake as well. So if I turn tilt to wake off and I do that, now I have a backlight that comes on when I tilt it, and then when I go away, the backlight turns off like so. So I want to see what the time is. backlight comes on. And you can actually change the colour of that backlight as well, which is quite nice. So you can have that as a few different colours if you wanted it to. Now what you do have, if you want to save battery even further, you do have an essential mode. So in this essential mode we can select our background colour, so we can change it, let's say change it to red, and have the screen off, pull it up, and look at that, nice little red watch. So from the main display you can do a few different things. If you swipe from the left, you go to your sort of Google Assistant and it gives you some basic information, and you can quickly access what's the weather like today.
Right now in Nailsea it's 15 degrees and partly cloudy. Today it'll be partly cloudy with a forecast high of 15 and a low of 11.
Because I don't know why it thinks I'm in Nailsea, but that's probably more Google than this. Then you can obviously swipe up and you can go to your notifications, and it gives you emails and everything like that. And if you swipe down, you go to your sort of quick actions, Google Pay. You can have your do not disturb mode and all that stuff. There's cinema mode and all that. And then you quickly access your settings as well from there. And if you swipe from the right, that takes you to your tiles. Now you can customize what tiles you have, and you can do that on the Wear OS app on your smartphone. But then when you're in your tiles, it just gives you some basic information from some of your apps. Nothing more interactive than that really. And then I think if you then tap it, it'll then take you to the actual app. Now one of the annoying things about using your watch is having to constantly do this all the time. And actually you can do some of the main features from your watch just by flicking your wrist. So if you flick it outwards, you can go up and swipe down and scroll through your notifications, and you can shake your wrist and that will take you back to the home page. Then if you flick back, that will scroll upwards like so. And I really like that sort of flexibility. It's something a little bit different that other smartwatches aren't doing, and actually after sort of practicing it a little bit, you do get to a bit of a routine with it, especially when you want to look at notifications, your watch buzzes, you just want to flick up and see what your notifications were. There you go. So what are my thoughts on this watch? Well, honestly, I love it. There are some things that aren't perfect and I think I would like improved, but ultimately, at the end of the day, I really like a lot about this watch. I'll give you some of my highlights. First of all, the design suits me to a T. It is exactly how I'd want my watch to look. It's not overly square like the Apple Watch. It looks really nice, the sort of textures on the front. I like the fact that you've got the numbers around the rim. Again, you can obviously change your watch face. I quite like the default one that comes with it, but you can change that as well if you want to. I really like how quick and responsive this thing is. It's super responsive. You're never sort of waiting a long time for apps to load. They just sort of pop up quite quickly, and the whole point of having something available to you on your watch is for it to be quick and easy and convenient. So that is a massive highlight. And ultimately my main highlight is the battery life. I cannot believe it lasts me 3 days. In comparison to all the other watches I've tried, that is a game changer. And I know a lot of people quite happy to just sort of take the watch off, put it on charge, and then put it back on at some point in the day. But my day changes every day. Some days I'm out all day and I don't get an opportunity to stick it on charge. Sometimes I just forget. So the fact that I only have to worry about it once every 3 days, that is brilliant. So guys, what do you think? Do you like the TicWatch Pro 3 Ultra? I do. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What watch do you have or do you want to get? The link to this one is in the description, and if you want to hear more from me, click on one of these, and I'll see you in the next one. Whoop!